So here's the thing. I think content creators, YouTubers, wedding filmmakers, run and gun shooters, or even documentary shooters who are looking to purchase a new lens for the Sony FE mount system camera or E-mount system camera, first of all, they should be looking at the art lenses, and here's why. This here is a Sigma 35mm f1.4 art lens. As you can see, this over here, it is the FE mount for Sony cameras. So I've owned this lens for almost a year now, and it has been the go-to lens for me 90% of the time. And I've been super happy with it. So there are a lot of great manual lenses out there. You know, companies like Voigtlander, Mitagon, Laowa, Zeiss, and I could keep going. But the big problem with the manual lenses is that obviously it's a manual focus lens, which means you can't use your video autofocus, neither can you use the lens to shoot photos with. At the same time, there are a lot of good and great autofocus lenses from Sony, like the G Master lenses, the G lenses, or in fact any native lens on Sony that Sony produces themselves is super fast on autofocusing. But the problem becomes when you try to manual focus the lenses, you start to pull your hair out because you realize all the lenses have focus by wire, which means manual focusing is just very annoying. If you don't know what focus by wire means, it means that the lens is not 100% manual, but the focus ring is just a trigger or switch that recognizes the movement and communicates it to the motors. In other words, the lens is not 100% doing what you want it to do because there is an actual computer that calculates your movements and then tells it to the motor to switch it. And for a long time you were left between those two choices, like very good manual lenses or autofocus lenses that have focus by wire lenses, until Sigma released their new Sigma Art set lineup for the Sony FE mount system. At some point when I was using my the native Sigma FE mount 35mm on my Sonys, I realized this and I thought, wow, this is actually a really good point that I haven't seen anyone point out. So here are some of the reasons why I think that the Sigma Art lenses are the best choice of lenses for most of the filmmakers. First of all, they are fully manual focus lenses. The focus ring is completely manual, but at the same time they're autofocus lenses, and they're doing a very good job when autofocusing the lens. Now don't get me wrong, they're not as good as G Master or the native lenses, but it's good enough for those people who mostly do filmmaking but want to snap the odd photo, or if they want to use them on photos, they can. Like wedding filmmakers, for example, or documentary filmmakers, or YouTubers, or content creators, people like that. Second of all, they are all very fast lenses. Now, as a filmmaker, you know that the cinematic feel, one of the things how you can create a cinematic feel is depth of field and very open aperture and creating this shallow depth of field. Now, with these lenses, you can do that because the lenses all have aperture of f1.4 or f1.8. There is one macro lens that is f2.8, but very wide open aperture lenses. There is a thing to note over here that the smallest aperture is f16, not f22 like most of the other lenses. Third of all, there is a great choice of lenses to choose from. There are altogether 11 lenses to choose from. Let me just read them all out to you. 40mm f1.8, 20mm f1.4, 24mm f1.4, 28mm f1.4, 35mm f1.4, 40mm f1.4, 50mm f1.4, 70mm f2.8 macro, 85mm f1.4, 105mm 1.4, 135 f1.8. Woo! Try saying that a few times in a row. I'm going to leave all the links of these lenses in the description below, so if you want to pick them up, the links are in the description. Fourth of all, there is a great consistency of quality. Now, some of the other lenses or some other lenses in the market have been known that you can get a very bad version of the lens and very good version of the lens, and people who have the good version of the lens, you know, won't let it go, and people sometimes have bad versions. But these ones, they're very consistent in quality, so it's much less likely that you're going to get a bad version of this lens when you get it. Also, I recommend buying them off Amazon from the links below, because when you have any problems, the return policy and returning them is very easy. So if you want to do that, the links are below. Fifth of all, they are very amazing optical quality. They're art series, they're art series for a reason, and they're very sharp, very good optical quality, just good glass, good lenses. Sixth of all, this is a big reason that most people consider when buying these lenses, is that usually the Sigma art lenses for FE mount or E mount are almost half the price as the native Sony lenses. So for example, this Sigma 35mm, you can pick it up between 600 and 700 pounds, where the Sony size 1.4 is coming around 1,300, which is literally almost half the price. Seventh of all, another good thing is that if you have been shooting Canon and Nikon before, for example, and you're thinking about moving to Sony, you can actually change your Sigma art lenses that are Canon or Nikon mount to Sony mounts. So you can literally send your lenses off to Sony, and instead of paying full price, you can just pay a few little fee and get your mount changed to Sony mount. It's called Sigma Mount Conversion Service, and I'm gonna leave a link below for you to check it out if you're interested in that. I think these lenses are the best lenses for most people in most situations. But remember to think about your situation, what and how you shoot, and make a decision based on that. So the art lenses, I think, are for people who shoot weddings, YouTube videos, documentaries, basically run and gun situations when autofocus is needed, but also a reliable manual focus. These lenses are probably not the best when you're filming cinema stuff. Then you're better off with a ridiculously expensive cinema gear, cinema glass, but you knew that already. Even though these are great lenses, there are some not so much of cons but sides that you need to consider, so let's talk about them as well. First of all, neither of these lenses have optical stabilization, something to consider. But if you do have IBIS, you're probably alright. Second of all, they are very heavy lenses, much heavier than the native Sony lenses or Tamron lenses or Samyang lenses, but it can also be a good thing. For example, if you have a very heavy camera setup, you're much less likely to have handshake on the footage when shooting handheld. When you have a very light camera setup, you have a lot of handshake that will show up in the video. So that's not a problem for me, but it could be for some people. Third of all, coming from the previous point, being heavier lenses, is that if you have a wider lens and you want to use them on a gimbal, then some of the wider lenses can be trickier balancing on the gimbal because just they're very front heavy. Fourth of all, there are no zoom lenses in the art series that are for the FE mount. So if your style is more zoom lenses, or if you need zoom lenses, you probably need to check out some Canon EF versions and get a converter and use it that way. In conclusion, you can see why for most people these are perfect lenses to shoot. Now, if you're one of those people who use these lenses or think about buying this lens and using this lens, let me know in the comment section below what type of video or what you're shooting with this lens. If you're one of those people who this lens is not a perfect fit, this doesn't fit in your situation, then let me know in the comment section below, because I'd like to know about that as well, why this isn't a good fit for you. Now, as always, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks guys for watching. Adios. Boom.